Welcome to the 21st Century Man podcast. We're kicking off a new format here, taking a deep dive into each chapter of the book, The 21st Century Man.
That's right.
And today we are plunging right into chapter 35, Food Allergies. This one's written by Dr. Matthew Lodwick, who's an allergist.
Yeah, and what really grabbed me right away in this chapter is this really refreshing perspective Dr. Lodwick offers.
Oh, what's that?
Well, he writes, having food allergies doesn't mean your body is broken. In fact, it means your body is highly intelligent.
That's interesting.
It really reframes how we think about these reactions, doesn't it? Like, instead of thinking something's wrong, it's almost like your body has this super vigilant security system.
Exactly. So it's not about a flawed system, but maybe one that's just, highly tuned.
Right.
So in this deep dive, our mission is basically to pull out the core insights from Dr. Lodwick's expertise in this chapter. We'll look at what really is a true food allergy, how they're identified, and we'll tackle some common misunderstandings. Plus, clarify those crucial differences between allergies and sensitivities. Like gluten sensitivity, celiac disease, all that stuff.
And for you, the listener, our goal is really to give you a clear understanding of these topics because they can be pretty confusing, right?
Definitely.
And to highlight, when getting expert advice, from a professional like Dr. Lodwick, is really, really essential. We'll pull out the key facts, try to demystify any jargon.
Yeah, break down the technical terms.
Exactly. And show why this chapter of the 21st Century Man is just such a valuable resource if you're trying to navigate how your body reacts to food.
Okay, all right, let's get into it then. How do we actually, identify a food allergy, according to Dr. Lodwick?
Well, one of the first things the chapter clarifies, and this is huge, is that most bad reactions people have to food, they aren't actually true allergies in the medical sense.
Ah, okay. So not every upset stomach is an allergy.
Precisely. Dr. Lodwick emphasizes that true food allergies, the IgE-mediated kind, typically involve pretty severe reactions, and they happen fast, usually within minutes of eating the food.
Like the classic examples you hear about.
Exactly. Think peanuts or shellfish. The reaction is often immediate, sometimes dramatic.
And here's something I found interesting, maybe a bit surprising for listeners. Dr. Lodwick mentions that most people with these genuine food allergies, they're usually kind of already aware of their sensitivities before they even see an allergist.
Yeah, that makes sense, doesn't it? Given how quick and intense those reactions can be, you'd probably notice.
You could think so.
But the chapter also points out you can develop a food allergy at any age. It's not just something you're born with.
Right, so if you suddenly start suspecting a food is causing allergic symptoms,
Then Dr. Lodwick strongly advises seeing an allergist, get it properly diagnosed. And for people who do have confirmed allergies, well, avoiding that food like crazy and always having auto-injectable epinephrine, like an EpiPen, really, that's absolutely vital. Not negotiable, really.
Okay. The book gives some pretty clear signs for when you should definitely seek out an allergy specialist, right?
It does. If you start getting hives, or that feeling of your throat tightening up, or chest tightness.
Scary stuff.
Yeah. Or even gastrointestinal symptoms like vomiting or severe cramps right after eating a specific food or food group, those are definite red flags. Time to see an expert.
Now, this next bit I found really useful, the difference between what people call severe and mild allergies, the IgE kind.
Ah, yes, that's a common point of confusion. The chapter clarifies that the severity isn't so much about, like, having a fundamentally worse allergy. It's often more about the dose of the allergen you're exposed to.
Right, so it's dose dependent often. A
Yeah.
tiny amount might just cause mild symptoms.
Exactly. But a larger amount of the same food could trigger a much more severe, even life-threatening reaction in the same person.
And the book also mentions other factors can play a role.
Yeah, things like exercising soon after you've eaten the allergen or drinking alcohol around the same time, those can actually amplify the body's allergic response, make it worse.
Interesting. Okay, the chapter also touches on some newer treatment approaches.
It does, yeah. It mentions oral immunotherapy, OIT, and sublingual immunotherapy, SLIT.
Right.
These are basically ways they're trying to sort of retrain the immune system by giving tiny, gradually increasing amounts of the food allergen. The goal is to increase the threshold, the amount someone can tolerate before having a reaction.
It sounds promising, like a more proactive approach.
It definitely is. And it suggests that how we manage food allergies might really change in the coming decades, which is exciting.
Yeah.
But the book is also realistic.
Okay.
It states that While these therapies can reduce how reactive someone is, the current research hasn't yet shown, like a permanent cure or complete, long-lasting desensitization. Still work in progress.
Got it. And, oh, this next point seems really important, especially with all the tests you can order online now.
Yes, Dr. Lodwick strongly cautions against using those broad, non-specific food allergy panels. You know, the ones they test for like hundreds of foods at once.
Yeah, I've seen those advertised.
He basically says they often cause more confusion than they solve.
Why is that?
Because interpreting food allergy tests is actually really complex. It needs a deep understanding of how the immune system works and the test's limitations. It's best left to allergy specialists.
Right, so it's not just a simple positive or negative.
Not at all. The chapter points out that false positives are really common, especially with tests that haven't been properly validated or if they're interpreted by someone without specific allergy training. Often, the book notes, the only way to be sure is through supervised oral food challenges in a clinic.
Okay, that's a really crucial takeaway. Don't just rely on a mail-order test panel.
Definitely not without expert guidance.
Okay, moving on. What about digestive issues? That's a really common complaint. People wondering if food allergies are causing their stomach problems.
Yeah, the chapter tackles that head on. It acknowledges that sometimes digestive symptoms like cramping, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea can be the main or only sign of a food allergy. But Dr. Lodwick clarifies, when that is the case, the specific food causing it is usually pretty obvious. It's likely something the person eats regularly and reacts to consistently and quickly.
Ah, okay. So if you're having vague, ongoing stomach issues without a clear, immediate trigger food.
Then it's less likely to be a classic food allergy causing it. The chapter suggests that for most people in that situation, hoping a food allergy test will magically find the answer, there isn't usually a consistent food trigger identified.
So what does he suggest then?
Well, Dr. Lodwick offers a more practical route, maybe trying a low FOD-MPS diet first.
FOD-MPS. Can you remind us what that stands for?
Sure, it's fermentable oligosaccharides, disaccharides, monosaccharides, and polyols.
Okay.
Basically, types of carbs that can be tough for some people to digest and can cause gas, bloating, pain.
Right, okay.
So trying a low FOD-MPS diet might help. If that doesn't work, the book strongly recommends seeing a gastroenterologist to check for other gut conditions.
Got it. Now let's switch gears slightly to something called oral allergy syndrome.
Yes, OAS. Dr. Lodwick describes this as a generally milder reaction. It mostly involves itching or tingling in the mouth and throat after eating certain raw fruits, vegetables, or some nuts.
And this is linked to pollen allergies, right?
Exactly. It's a cool case of mistaken identity by the immune system. Proteins in some of these plant foods are structurally really similar to proteins in pollens like birch, ragweed, or grasses.
So if you're allergic to birch pollen,
Your immune system might see a similar protein in, say, a raw apple or celery stick, get confused, and trigger that local itching in your mouth. The chapter mentions you can find charts online showing these common cross-reactivities.
that's handy. But there's a warning here too, isn't there? Especially with nuts.
A very important one. If someone gets oral symptoms, even mild ones, after eating just a tiny bit of a nut, it could be tempting to brush it off as just OAS.
But it might not be.
Exactly. It could actually be the first sign of a much more serious systemic nut allergy. So Dr. Lodwick is very clear. Any uncertainty, especially with nuts, see an allergist. Don't assume it's just OAS.
Okay, crucial distinction. Let's move into the broader area of food sensitivities. The chapter makes a striking point about our immune system.
Yeah, it notes that something like over 60% of our entire immune system is actually located in our gut.
Wow, that much?
It's huge, and that massive concentration of immune cells helps explain why our gut can react in so many ways: cramping, diarrhea, pain, even symptoms that feel like food poisoning.
And Dr. Lodwick adds some historical context here too.
He does. He reminds us that having safe food readily available, thanks to things like refrigeration, is actually really new in human history.
Right, for most of our existence.
Our ancestors were constantly battling contaminated food and water. So the gut's immune system evolved to be incredibly complex, this huge protective barrier working alongside trillions of beneficial gut bacteria.
And all that complexity means.
It means our gut reactions can sometimes be unpredictable or hard to figure out. It's just a very intricate system down there.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, let's tackle the big one. Gluten sensitivity and celiac disease. This is everywhere these days.
It really is. And Dr. Lodwick highlights that while it's a popular topic, There's unfortunately a lot of misinformation floating around.
What's the main caution?
He warns against jumping to conclusions and blaming non-specific symptoms, like feeling tired or having a stuffy nose, on a gluten allergy. He points out that allergy tests for gluten often show false positives, particularly in people who already have pollen allergies due to cross-reactivity again.
So gluten sensitivity isn't one single thing.
Exactly. He explains it's more of an umbrella term. It covers different reactions. Some people do have a true rapid onset wheat allergy, which involves gluten, but others have different kinds of sensitivity.
And celiac disease is one specific, different type.
Yes. Celiac disease is presented as a distinct autoimmune condition triggered by gluten. It's not a typical allergy. And unlike those rapid allergic reactions, celiac often comes on more gradually. Diagnosis can sometimes take years.
What are the common symptoms of celiac?
Things like bloating, diarrhea, sometimes unexplained weight loss are common. And the book stresses it has a genetic link. So if you're diagnosed, close relatives with similar symptoms should probably get tested too.
And it can sometimes look like IBS.
It can, yeah. Which is why ruling out celiac is really important if someone has ongoing IBS-type symptoms. Dr. Lodwick also notes it can be linked with other autoimmune issues, like thyroid problems or type 1 diabetes.
But the testing is good.
The good news is, yes, testing for celiac disease is generally very accurate, provided it's done correctly.
How does it actually affect the body?
Dr. Lodwick explains that in people with celiac, gluten causes damage to the lining of the small intestine, especially the first part, the duodenum. This messes with nutrient absorption. If you look at a biopsy under a microscope, you see significant inflammation.
And there's a really key point about getting tested.
Absolutely critical. Dr. Lodwick emphasizes that if you suspect celiac, you need to get evaluated by a doctor who understands it could be primary care, could be a gastroenterologist before you cut gluten out of your diet.
Why before?
Because if you've been avoiding gluten for a while, the damage starts to heal and the blood markers can go back to normal. It basically masks the evidence needed for diagnosis.
Okay, so don't go gluten-free, then ask for the test.
Exactly. Get tested while still eating gluten. The chapter says the gold standard is an endoscopy with biopsy, but blood tests can also be very effective for diagnosis when interpreted correctly.
Right. Now, what about people who feel better off gluten but don't have celiac disease? Non-celiac gluten sensitivity.
The chapter makes some important distinctions there. For one, people with non-celiac gluten sensitivity don't have that increased risk of certain cancers, like lymphoma, that comes with untreated celiac disease.
Okay, that's significant.
And for them, having gluten occasionally probably isn't a major health problem, unlike for someone with celiac where strict avoidance is crucial.
So how can someone figure out if gluten is truly the issue for them if it's not celiac?
Dr. Lodwick suggests the best way is often through careful elimination diets. Cut out gluten, see how you feel, then systematically reintroduce it and monitor symptoms. And you might need to repeat that process periodically to be sure.
And the book offers another perspective too, right? About why people might feel better going gluten-free.
Yeah, it's an insightful point. It suggests that sometimes the benefits people feel might actually come from cutting down on processed foods generally, because a lot of processed stuff contains gluten, and focusing more on whole foods instead. It might be the overall healthier diet, not just the absence of gluten itself.
Makes sense. But for actual celiac disease, the diagnosis is really important.
Hugely important. Dr. Lodwick circles back to stress this because of the serious long-term risks associated with untreated celiac, including lymphoma and other GI cancers. He emphasizes that strict, lifelong adherence to a gluten-free diet significantly reduces these risks for people who genuinely have celiac disease.
Wow, okay. So this deep dive into Chapter 35 of the 21st Century Man, it's really unpacked a lot about food allergies and sensitivities.
It really has. We've gotten a much clearer picture, I think, of the difference between true allergies and other reactions, why expert diagnosis matters so much, and all the nuances around gluten and celiac disease.
Yeah, Dr. Lodwick's explanations in the chapter are just so clear and accessible. It makes these confusing topics much easier to grasp and gives you real, actionable insights.
Totally agree.
We really, really recommend you pick up a copy of The 21st Century Man and read this chapter for yourself, along with all the other great stuff in the book.
Yeah, the information we've covered today really shows how well the book takes these complex health topics and just boils them down into understandable, useful knowledge for everyone.
Definitely. Well, we hope you'll join us next time on the 21st Century Man podcast. We'll be diving into the next chapter, Chapter 36, Finding the Right Diet.
Ooh, that'll be a good one too. Looking forward to unpacking more from this fantastic book with you then.